podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our Quick Publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to the first episode of Stat Me Up for the new season, ladies and gents. It feels like it's been a million years since we ran through the metrics. We talked players, we talked next games, we've talked historical. Hopefully we're not going to talk about that dreaded 2021 season this time around. But as ever, I'm excited to be joined by my colleague who always does it with me together, Ben Boksak. Ben, looking forward to getting your stats ready.
Yeah, it's great to be back. Obviously, we had a long hiatus, to be fair now, because of pre-season and everything. There wasn't that many stats to dive into, but immediately in this first game, there were so many positive signs and so many encouraging stats and numbers to go through. So I'm looking forward to this episode.
Yeah, got to do it. Ipswich, 2-0. Diogo Jota and Mo Salah, and I know we'll have this, Ben, because everyone else will have it. 9 goals on the opening day, a Premier League record, an unbelievable player. Let's dive into this one then. We'll start getting into stats. I mean, 2-0, probably a tale of two halves, some people will call it. What did you actually think of the overall performance?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say that cliche, but it was a game of two halves, really. I think in the first half, Liverpool were maybe a bit sloppy, especially when it came to, I think, some passing and the duels as well. It didn't seem like Arne Slot's vision. Like, Liverpool were going long all the time and like trying to catch Ipswich in behind, which isn't really what we've seen from Arne Slot really in pre-season. We've gone with the short passes and stuff like that. Whereas I think Van Dijk and Alexander-Arnold almost had the tendency, like the old muscle memories of the Klopp era. And I think there was a lot of things that Slot probably didn't like in that first half, but credit to him who made a change. I don't think that change completely contributed to Liverpool's overall better performance. I think everyone else just adhered more to Slot's style too, which helped, especially sort of break down Ipswich. But yeah, I think overall everything was really encouraging in the second half. And if that's how Liverpool are going to play for the rest of the season, like they did in the second half, then we could be in for an exciting campaign, I think.
Yeah, fingers crossed, especially if it is that second half. And I mean, as you say, everyone fixated on Jarell Quansah coming off, Ibu Konate coming on, but the overall team performance across the board was nothing was really hard compared to that first half of any, but was really, really good. It seemed like attack after attack, Ben. Did the metrics and stats bear that out as well?
Absolutely. I think the one that really stood out to me is Liverpool recorded 50 touches in the opposition's box, which was the most any manager has recorded with their team in the opening Premier League fixture of all time, I think, since Opta started their data in the 2008-09 season. So, Liverpool were all over Ipswich. They also recorded a 3.45 XG. That was the highest in all of Europe's top 5 leagues in the opening sort of weekend as well.
Wow.
So, it was a very dominant attacking performance, and you'd probably say it should have been more than 2. It could have been 3, it could have been 4. But I think overall the underlying numbers are really encouraging.
2, right, yeah. No, 3.45 XG, 50 touches in the opposition box. Yeah, I think that's fair to say. 2-0 probably flattered Ipswich in the end a little bit, but Liverpool were happy to come away with a clean sheet, always maybe one of the most important stats, no doubt. And a player that figured in that, and it was one of those decisions, I think, when we saw it in the Seville game, we thought it's probably going to be Gravenberch that starts as the sixth, very similar team in that regard, and so it proved to be. I'm sure you noticed this, mixed reaction to Ryan Gravenberch starting there, but it seemed like he had a really good game, to be fair to him. What did the stats tell him or tell us about Ryan Gravenberch versus Ipswich?
Yeah, I think it was a good performance, particularly on the ball. I think defensively, positionally, and stuff like that, he probably still needs to improve. He only won one of his 3 attempted tackles, and I think there were times when he maybe overcommitted and things like that. But he's not a natural 6, especially in the defensive 6 type of player. So that will take time. His distribution was really good, though. I think he made the most passes into the final third for Liverpool, 9 in total. I think he was also the only Premier League player to complete 2 through passes in the whole of the opening Premier League sort of weekend.
Wow.
So yeah, I was really impressed with his distribution. He was always looking for forward passes, trying to instigate things, and I think that's what Slot wants from his number 6. And we really saw that. So I think a couple of people highlighted how we only got an 86% pass completion rate on my post when I posted about him on Twitter. But the point that I wanted to get across is like 86% when you're making so many forward passes, when you're making so many passes into the final third is really good, and it's really encouraging. Obviously, forward passes have higher risk of being intercepted or not being completed.
Yeah.
But in Slot's system, he wants players to make those riskier passes because you get a higher reward, obviously. And I think you could see that Gravenberch really sort of implemented that idea, and all good things almost sort of started out with him. And I was really encouraged by the performance overall. Like I said, defensively, there are things to iron out, but I think everything else, bearing in mind this is Ipswich, so Liverpool will, with all respect, have tougher tests. But I think he did show that he could be a sort of genuine option in that role. I'm still of the mind and the idea that I think Liverpool need to buy a number 6, and there are probably number 6s in the market, but if it has to be this way, then I don't think Gravenberch is a bad option.
No, to be fair, Ryan Gravenberch probably never envisaged he'd be Liverpool's number 6 at the start of the season, but we got to judge him on what we can see, and like you said, especially from the attacking side of that position, drove forward so well, and I'm sure his progressive numbers were good. And like you said, there was a couple of brilliant progressive passes. That one where Diaz should really either lift over the keeper or just knock it around and go should have been an assist for him. Brilliant driving with the ball. Yeah, the defensive side lost a few challenges. I think he was harshly done to a couple of times at free kicks. It did look like he pitched the ball, but he has got those almost telescopic style legs that reach around the corner. So yeah, we'll see if he improves, but a good start there, to be fair. One player that we are going to talk about, I mentioned there, Luis Diaz. There's almost 2 sides we see on this, Ben, for Luis Diaz. We see the player who looks like he can beat anyone, and he's lively, and he's fast, and he's dangerous against Ipswich. And in the same game, we see the player who misses the sitter, don't we, and lifts it over the bar. I mean, what do the stats tell us about Luis Diaz against Ipswich?
I think, he completed 5 dribbles, 5 out of 5, so 100% pass dribble completion rate. Won the most duels. I think he was really active going forward. Sort of gave Liverpool a new energy, a new lease of life, or something they didn't really have other than Diaz. But like he mentioned, obviously he missed a couple of sitters as well.
Yeah.
He also created the joint most chances, and I wanted to highlight this actually because Liverpool had, I think, 4 players create 3 or more chances in this game, which is quite impressive. I think last season, a lot of the times, Liverpool would rely on Salah or Alexander-Arnold creating those chances, and they were in those four players that, like, this weekend as well, or last weekend I should say. But we also had Dominic Szoboszlai be and create chances as well, and obviously Luis Diaz himself. So I think that's really encouraging that, you know, Liverpool's chances are not just coming from the usual sources, but they're coming from Szoboszlai, who we wanted to see him do this more often, and they're coming from Diaz as well. So yes, his end product when it comes to finishing may not be perfect, but at least he's setting up his teammates, he's setting up chances for himself, and eventually I think his finishing will improve. I don't think he'll ever be a Sadio Mane type of finisher or a Bobby Firmino, but you know, we saw at Porto that he took a lot of low XG shots and they ended up going in, and he very much overperformed his XG. And I think one of these days we'll see him score a couple, like he did against Sevilla as well. Like the two goals he scored against Sevilla weren't particularly, I mean, obviously the second one, I think the one that Szoboszlai set up was quite an easy chance, but the first one certainly wasn't. And I think with him, just need a bit more patience probably. And I understand Liverpool fans though who are frustrated because, you know, he's been here for a while and we've had to be patient with him for a while. But I don't know, I'm still a fan of him in the way he beats players and the runs that he makes. I think that's quite rare, especially in this Liverpool team, but in world football in general, to find a player who's so good in his 1-versus-1 ability. And it's not like he's useless in the final third, like the numbers showed. He is creating chances. So I think you just have to accept that with Diaz, he's not going to guarantee you goals all the time.
Yeah, 5 out of 5 dribbles completed. Like you say, deadly threat, all those touches, creates chances, everything but the goal, literally, as they'd say where I'm from. So interested that you mentioned, like, so many players creating chances, Premier League record there, 50 touches in the box. Any other stats you were looking at for the game, be it for players, team, anything else that stood out for you at all?
No, I think that's it. I think those are the numbers, and I think those are all really encouraging things. I'm particularly encouraged by, I think, Szoboszlai, because I found it interesting that he made 2 through passes as well in that game against Ipswich, which he only made 2 or more through passes 4 times last season for Liverpool. So again, you know, completely different role, and we're seeing him utilize his sort of best abilities when he was playing for Leipzig. He did that 14 times in his final season at Leipzig, and obviously created a lot of chances. He ranked number 1 for shot creating actions from open play for Leipzig, and expected assists and those kind of things. So the fact that he managed 2 through passes in Slot's first game, I think is really encouraging. Is sort of showing his new role, where he's not just necessarily the type of player like playing that Henderson role, covering for Salah and Alexander-Arnold, but actually I think it's what I spoke about when he first signed, getting that balance between Salah, Alexander-Arnold and Szoboszlai, right? And I think we finally saw it against Ipswich. The balance was right, especially in the second half. I think the first half was a bit sloppy, but in the second half we got that balance right, and we saw all of them create the joint most chances in the game. And I think that that's something that hopefully is going to become a theme for the rest of the season. And we'll see that right side being a huge threat when it comes to creating chances and putting chances away as well.
Will be interesting to see. Yeah, Trent was insane. And to be honest, the thing that I think surprised us stats-wise is probably the way we know Arne Slot measures or the load management is, right, to say the players that didn't come off the bench as well, the likes of Nunes didn't get on, now they did Harvey Elliott, Curtis Jones, so probably some surprises there, but 1 game in so far, clean sheet, 3 points on the board, that is the main stat that we'll take. And it leads us to Brentford, so this is the weekend game, isn't it? The Super Sunday, 4:30, it's the first home game of the season. I might be wrong on this. It always feels like our record at home's pretty good against Brentford. Are you about to tell me any different at all, man?
No, you're absolutely correct this time. Liverpool haven't won they haven't just lost against Brentford in the Premier League era at Anfield, but they've won every single game as well. So, it's been pretty comfortable. I think last season it was 3-1.
Yeah.
Pretty comfortable game as well. Actually, I was looking at the sort of historical records, and the last time Liverpool actually lost to Brentford at Anfield was before World War II in 1937. So, quite a long time ago. I think if Brentford were to get a result, it would be historical for sure. On the whole, Liverpool have been pretty comfortable against Brentford at Anfield, particularly recently since they've been promoted back to the Premier League as being comfortable victories.
Interesting. And I mean, you think of Brentford, you think of their forwards, and Wemo, a player that we've been linked with, and Ivan Toney. Obviously, there's been a lot of talks around him, hasn't he? Subject to the Saudi offer over the weekend, where Thomas Frank's left him out the starting lineup. So, I mean, we don't know for definite, but it looks like you wonder and think he could be heading off somewhere. I mean, historically, or does the stats say that could be a good thing for us? Ivan Toney is known to be a Liverpool fan. Does he have a decent record against us at all?
I don't need a VPN. I've got nothing to hide. This is what I used to tell myself before I hooked up with LibertyShield.com. Not only is my home internet now fully encrypted, but I can now access all the websites I want, whenever I want, and do so from absolutely anywhere. As a Liverpool fan, I love to know I can now watch every match, regardless of whether it's on UK TV or not. My Liberty Shield VPN makes sure nothing is blocked and guarantees me super fast streaming speed throughout that match. You can get connected right now with their software package, which includes a 48-hour no-obligation free trial and instant access to their apps for Apple, Android, Fire TV, PC, Mac and Android TV. Or go a step further like I have and get one of their pre-configured VPN routers. These small but powerful devices allow you to easily connect every device in your home to VPN, making it the perfect solution for smart TVs, Mac boxes and games consoles. Visit LibertyShield.com today and use coupon code AIVPN25 to get 25% off at checkout.
Not necessarily when it comes to goals. He's only ever scored one, and that was in the last game, the 3-1. So before, in his 3 previous games against Liverpool, he hadn't actually scored. He did get an assist in that 3-3 draw in Brentford's first Premier League season.
Yeah.
I think he caused a lot of problems to Virgil van Dijk in that game. So I think most of his contribution is sort of off the ball or like the aerial duels kind of thing rather than goal contributions. He doesn't necessarily have a very prolific record against Liverpool when it comes to scoring, but he can definitely be a threat when it comes to, I think, those long balls up that Brentford play on the counter attacks, flicking it onto, like you mentioned, Mbeumo and potentially Fabio Carvalho as well in this game if he gets an opportunity.
Yeah.
So I think that's what Liverpool would have to watch out for if he is in the squad or if he does play. I mean, I think he did train ahead of the match this weekend, but obviously there is the subject of interest, and you never know if he's very quickly in the transfer window.
Yeah, no doubts about it at all. And even Sepp van der Berg might be heading there, isn't he? Apparently they've had an offer of up to 30 million, add-ons included in there, acceptance. There does seem to be some connections there. Probably the one thing we're hoping from this Brentford game is, aside from 3 points, the clean sheet that will be nice. Everyone thinks, I think, of the game last season when we played in the purple kit, and it was pretty much the season over for Diogo Jota, wasn't it? So, yeah, keeping everyone fit, which is going well so far, touch wood, stays the same. We'll see what Sunday brings. But let's talk a bit of transfer action, because I mean, let's be honest, the Reds seem to be selling everyone potentially right now. There's a lot of exits galore. There's very little talk about incomings, but we'll have a bit of fun with this one, Ben, because taking you back to the weekend, it was very quiet. Then all of a sudden, the name Jared Branthwaite came up, and I'm sure you noticed this. Betting odds started tumbling, didn't they? And all of a sudden, at one stage with the view sites, it was 4-5 on because of the bets being placed naturally. I'm sure people know how that works, but you always think there's no smoke without fire when it comes to the bookies and how they do their odds at the same time. So we thought we'd have a bit of fun with this, Ben. People like Jared Branthwaite in the sense of, A, we'd love to annoy them across Stanley Park by getting him in their financial situation. That's different. But left-footed, homegrown, done well in the Premier League for a side that really struggled last season for obvious reasons. I mean, could he play centre-back? Could he play left-back? What do the stats say, let's be honest, about Jared Branthwaite as a player?
I mean, look, he's a good player. And the stats say that as well. Like, 76%, over 76% defensive duel success rate last season, which was top 3 for centre-backs in the league who played, I think, over 1,500 minutes. And he was averaging like a decent volume of defensive duels too, so just over 5. He's a big lad, so I think aerially, I will sort of say the fact that he just averaged 60% aerial duel success rate from around 4 aerial duels could potentially improve. I think considering the fact like his stature and his size, but then again, you know, he was playing for Everton in a defensive system where maybe sometimes, you know, that had a role to do with, I don't know, from set pieces potentially, and stuff like that. But overall, I think, you know, the fact that he was in top 3 for defensive duel success rate among centre-backs in the Premier League would suggest he's a very good player. And, you know, he's comfortable on the ball. We didn't really see at Everton, but if you look at his numbers for PSV, in the Eredivisie, he was always ranked very highly for forward passes and things like that while playing in a team that was sort of competing for the title. And I think it's always important to sort of add context to these kind of things. So while his forward passes and progressive passes are not great for Everton, but you also have to look at what was Everton's sort of average possession, how many games that they actually dominate in the Premier League. So I think if you measure up his stats at PSV, you get a more accurate picture of his on-the-ball ability. I mean, obviously it's in an inferior league where maybe he doesn't get pressed as high or pressed as often, but I still think it's a more of an accurate picture of what he would look like in the Liverpool team than if I were to look at, you know, him on the ball for Everton. So I think overall, defensively decent. I would like to see him better when it comes to aerial duels. He reads the game well. He's good in duels, and I think Slot highlighted that this weekend is very important for him for defenders to be strong in duels. So Branthwaite, you get that, and I think the main reason I would be a fan of this still because it would just be great to get him and Anthony Gordon and see the absolute meltdown from 10 fans, wouldn't it? I think that would be brilliant.
Yeah, I think Gordon probably longer term easier to get because he's got a couple of years. We'll see if he signs that Newcastle renewal. For the record, people, this is not us saying that we believe we would sign Jared Branthwaite. He's just reacting to the rumours and running some numbers. Probably a good one to finish on, Ben, because this one's a lot stronger. I mean, it does actually seem to have dragged on for an awful long time over, and I want to be careful how I phrase this because 5 million is not a small amount of money to us, but in football terms, it's really not the biggest thing we've got to be honest about that, but it seems to have dragged out a while. Mamardashvilli, the Georgian goalkeeper, the Valencia player, it seems from all the reports, it's on the verge of being done. They seem to have been haggling for an awful long time, but this is a player Liverpool are looking to get, but not for now. To be alone for Valencia for at least a year, maybe longer, seeing what happens with Alisson, which will be an interesting one at the same time for a year's time. I mean, there's a lot being made of this keeper, his age, his ability, his potential. What are the stats saying about Mamardashvilli? We got a potential, top keeper on our hands if we get him.
I mean, I've been a big fan of him for a while. Like, his numbers are really good. You only have to look at the Euros and see the amount of XG he prevented. I think it was 4 XG that he prevented for Georgia in the span of, I think, 4 games. Yeah, they played 4 games. So that's pretty crazy numbers. But that was no fluke. That was not an anomaly. He's like that at Valencia as well. Last season, he prevented 10 XG, which is very similar to sort of Alisson's numbers at Roma the season before Liverpool bought him. He's a big goalkeeper, grown a lot in stature as well. He was kind of skinny when he was still in Georgia, but now he's grown. He sort of filled out his body, so he's a big lad. He's a big, massive presence in between the goal, and I think that helps. But his prevented goal statistics are really good, and I think when you look at goalkeeper, that's what you sort of prioritize. You don't really look at other statistics. You look at how many goals are they actually saving, how valuable are they to their team, and he's very valuable. I remember speaking to Mika, who I've now interviewed for Anfield Index as well, but I spoke to him before the Euros for a different piece on Georgia. And, I was expecting him to say, when I asked him, who's the most important player for the national team? Obviously, we all know of Kvaratskhelia. I was expecting that, but he was like, no, actually, Mamardashvilli, his leadership, the way he leads by example on the pitch, he's way more important to this team than Kvaratskhelia, which at the time took me by surprise. But I remember messaging him after the Euros, and I was like, I understand what you meant. I can see what you mean, and it's a deal that surprised me, to be honest, because I remember talking to you when the news was breaking, and it just sounded like Spanish media making up rumors. It just didn't seem like he's a great player, but Liverpool don't need a goalkeeper.
Yeah,
it just didn't seem like it was credible. But then obviously Mika, he knows him a little bit. Used to work for his agency, so I sort of reached out to him, and he confirmed this is actually true. Liverpool are interested. This could be happening, and after that I was quite excited. I think because I think at 23 years old he's a really exciting goalkeeper, and he's a real prospect. I think who could become. I agree with Mika. He said in the podcast, one of the best goalkeepers in the world, and I think he's got the potential for that. And it's a bit of a strange one because we don't get to see him in a Liverpool shirt anytime soon. I think it does feel like it's edging closer to completion, barring sort of any last-minute surprises or hurdles. It looks like it's one. It might actually be the only one Liverpool get done in this window. But overall, I am looking forward to sort of keeping an eye on him at Valencia next season, and then sort of seeing how he can, when he will come into this Liverpool team, because I think that's still a question mark. But when he does, I think Liverpool will have a great goalkeeper if he continues to develop in the same way, and everything from what Mika said, which if any listener hasn't listened to that podcast, I really recommend listening to it, because from everything Mika said, the way Mamardashvilli has sort of worked to improve himself, he's a top professional, he's learnt Spanish very quickly, he's obviously worked a lot in the gym on his body, he's bounces back from sort of mistakes and stuff like that very quickly, which is important for a goalkeeper because they're not going to be perfect. They are going to make mistakes. It's just a natural process of things. We've seen Alisson make some howlers as well. It just happens. But the important thing is how you sort of recover from that, how you bounce back from it. And he does that very well too. So I think it's overall Liverpool getting the perfect package, really. I'm sure the recruitment team have done similar background checks, and everything has sort of checked out too. So I'm really encouraged by this transfer, I think.
Yeah, it does. To be fair, if there's any doubts over Alisson, it's such a specialist position. It sounds like it's smart business to get something like this done ahead of time. I suppose the only thing I know people will be looking for is, will there be anything before the transfer window? And as it probably comes, the next time me and Ben speak, it'll be right on the verge of it, and we'll see what is happening or not, as the case may be. So it's Brentford at the weekend. Hopefully it goes the same way as Ipswich, ladies and gents, and the Reds will be 6 from 6, which is the ultimate stat we are all looking for. So all it leaves me to say as ever is, Ben, for the time, the insight and the stats, much appreciated, pal.
Yeah, thank you very much. And let's hope for a win and hopefully more transfers as well.
Yeah,
incomings as well, dare I say, not just departures.
Yeah, not just the exit aisle, shall we say. We'll see what happens, eh? But, ladies and gents, for the first one of the season, that was Anfield Index's Stat Me Up.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at anfieldindex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.